Okay, people. So it's September 24th, 2017. First thing I want to say is, like, I've been having severe panic attacks all day. And I know where it's coming from, people. It's coming from all this stress. Serious. With the city and just the whole 9 yards. Right? Obviously, not the city anymore, but, you know, it's the remnants of when I go out in the yard, I just go, boing, you know, like, oh my God, you know, I gotta get up on it. Like, you know, not yesterday, but the day before, I was working on Andre's shed, right? Putting on the shingles and that type of thing, and raking up these little orange berries with the leaves that fall off this tree. So I'll have to do it like 2 or 3 more times before the tree is completely emptied. And then just, you know, I'm watching my tomatoes. Like, I wouldn't mind getting another batch of tomatoes in before the weather really changes. So it's getting real close. Another day or two, I should be able to can another 3 or 4 more jars anyway. Right? Probably 3, which will be fine, right? Because if I can do 3 here, 4 there, 2 here, you know, you have to remember I gave away a lot of tomatoes, right? I probably gave away 2 big grocery bags full, right? That would have been... You know, if I would have had the time to can them, it would have been probably, at least 12 or 16 quart size jars of tomatoes, which would have satisfied me, right? But as it is, it looks like I just might be getting a whole bunch of green tomatoes, right? Which will be, like I said, at some point, probably green tomato relish, right? Try that, because I do have some green tomatoes canned from last year, but besides that point, that's not really what I want to talk about. Outside of, I got some herbs from the garden, and after this little video that I'm doing right now, I'm going to walk to the store, I'm going to get a pound of butter, and then I'm going to do something with them, and I'll probably videotape that and add it to this little clip, right? Because I'm like, you know, I'm wandering through the house, and I'm like, you know, like, I'm serious, people. I am creeped out with this fucking guy next door. Like, seriously. Well, just with this family that lives next door. The mother and the father. Because it's not just the father. It's the mother, too, right? You know, I've heard people... You know, I've talked to the people that live below him. And, like, they just keep moving out. Like, the women that move into that place... In the last year and a half, or whatever it is, there's been, like, 3 women... that have lived there and all moved out. This is what the last guy was telling me, right? And the last guy, the guy upstairs got him evicted, right? And the guy before him just said he couldn't fucking take it anymore. That dude was a biker, right? But he worked as a supervisor on the roads with the, you know, with those flashing vehicles with, you know, construction, but he was a supervisor, right? And he lived in the basement there for quite a while, and he said he didn't really want to move because once he moved, his rent was going to be going up higher, and he knew that, but he just couldn't stand it anymore, right? And then the other guy moved in, and then that guy, like I said, the guy upstairs got him evicted, right? And then all the women that they've had in that place have all moved out, like 3 of them, 4 of them, right? Have all moved out because of the bullshit that goes on upstairs with the noise with those kids bouncing around. So this guy is like nobody to talk. Right? And if he's hanging over his fucking rail looking on my side of the fence instead of his side of the fucking fence, and, you know, looking in his backyard, but he wants to look in my backyard, listening, you know, videotaping, you know? It's like stupid, man. So now I'm all creeped out in my freaking backyard, wondering if he's videotaping me. And I've had a neighbor like this, people, before. This is the thing. This is not the first time I've had a neighbor like this. When I lived at Gateway Place, that Marnie, right, with her camera, standing out there, sticking her tongue out at the kids and throwing hot water at Tisha as Tisha's coming in to try and get into her apartment. Throwing crap on my door. You know, calling the cops on me when I was outside painting rocks with the kids or doing whatever. Coming outside and picking fucking fights with me. Now, this guy doesn't pick fights with me. He's just looking for something to call social services on all the time. But yet he sends his 5-year-old little girl on a bus for 8.5 hours a day when they're not in school. In addition to his other 2 kids. As he's creeping my yard. You know, like, come on. And nobody downstairs below him wants to live there very long. They're always moving out. I can tell you this time next year, those people who are living there probably will move out. It'll be new people living there.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm just stressed out. Andre, please, let me just do my video. You were outside.
But now
Andre, please don't...
I'm going to try these shoes on.
Sure, you can go do that somewhere else.
Well, I'm going to wear these clothes. My
No, I have to wash them.
Why?
Because they they're brand new and they have preservatives on the fabric called formaldehyde. So you don't put on clothes that came from a store. You always have to wash them.
Yeah, people.
Okay, can you not interrupt?
Yeah, people, and I have this. It's a Hello Hawker rifle witch.
Yes, but Alex will help you with that when Alex comes by
Tomorrow,
with Auntie Tisha.
maybe.
I don't know. It'll be sometime this week.
Yeah, maybe I'll...
Okay, let me do my video. Go! Anyway, people. So I'm thinking about this channel, right? Like yesterday I was at this party and the kids remember Mama Lynn, right? And like my daughter Tisha, she takes so much after me. No regrets, people. I'm glad I did those park events. I'm glad I went out in the community and did all that there for all those years. Because what it did is it showed really good leadership, and that leadership imported into my daughter, right? Because like she's amazing with kids, right? So I told her, I need to help you set it up so that you can start your own little business and host birthday parties and that type of thing, on top of whatever else that she does, right? Because she's a nanny, and she also works at one of those big jungle gym places, right, with kids all day long. So she's working with kids all the time, and you can see it. She got that attribute from me when I was out doing park events and when I was out in Gateway Place doing all that stuff with those kids. But since this stuff has happened with Uncle John, first it started with Andre, and everybody's commenting, oh, your hair is so beautiful, your hair is so long, and oh, you don't dye your hair, that's your natural color, you have no gray hair, it's like, geez, and it's getting so long, and I'm like, well, exactly, it just grows back, people. That's why at the time, it just, it's only hair. But it's what happened around that situation that really nobody's healed from it yet, because the wound was ripped wide open when Uncle John went missing. And the more I think about it, people, the more I am convinced that they had him in that hammock, they had him drugged up, and they transported him on the ferry on a hammock. I do not believe that he willingly, happily walked on the ferry with a fucking walker, sat there and said, goodbye. We'll never talk to you again, Judy and the kids. 23 years of nothing. Do you honestly believe that happened, people? As he was begging to come home day after day after day for 45 days? Well, needless to say, that has interrupted my emotional and psychological well-being, including my spiritual well-being, along with every other member in this household. Right? So it's really hard to get on with life. Andre, please be quiet. And that's the point of this video. I'm having panic attacks because I'm finding it extremely hard getting on with life. Because for as much as I'm proud of my daughter doing what my daughter is doing, I should be out there doing it too. And that's the thing. Fraser Health Authority and CIBC Bank and anyone else that's in that colluded group of whatever, they just destroyed something that was they're in the process of destroying. Because I can definitely say that my personality has changed in terms of like, I just I don't know how to pick up that Humpty Dumpty. I've said it before. I don't know how to put it back together. I really don't. So because I don't know how, I have to try and figure out a way to do it, right? And with all those children, you know, really, at that party, I should be Mama Lynn. And I should be focusing more on the foundation in terms of what Uncle John would want me to do, right? Outside of continuing on with the lawsuit and that type of stuff, right? And just trying to hold down the fort and, you know, keep myself sane and, you know, try and remain healthy as best as I can, right? And get the kids through, right? So that they're productive members in society for all the hard knocks that they get. And so I'm like really thinking about this Patreon page. And, you know, the puppet shows and the walnut art and that type of stuff, right? And I think I'm going to make all those videos private. Not because I want to make money. And this is the point of this video, people. Because I have to break away from this troll network. There has to be accountability to these people that stalk me. Whether it's this creepy neighbor next door, right? Or those ones down over there, further down the road, with their white picket fence, right? I wouldn't say it's the ones that teach their kids to be racist, because since the last time I had the conversation with the man and told him to go argue with his own damn wife, he's actually kind of lightened up, and his kids have been trying to talk more with Andre. I think he maybe critiqued them and said, look, you know, you can't be going around picking on other kids, right? So, because they've been trying to have communication with Andre, and, you know, you can always tell when somebody is somewhat remorseful, right? And I would say that these people over there are somewhat remorseful, right? Because whether they were doing it intentionally or whether they weren't, it's not the point. The point is that they acknowledge what I said, and they're making an effort to correct it. So I don't consider them to be creepy neighbors like I consider these people over here to be creepy fucking neighbors, and I'm not fucking afraid to say it because it's starting to piss me off, people. You know, it's one thing jumping in your little boogie van, right? If you're watching this video with your camera, your cell phone, going to the cop shop saying, look, the baby's screaming. Just because you got nothing else better in your day, right? And then turn around and start the process not even a year later just because you're on some warped freaking reality check. As your kids are gone 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, while you sit there at home with nothing to fucking do. And then consider yourself to be a damn good parent. As you scare out all the people from downstairs. Right? They've had they've had like 6 tenants, seven tenants that I'm aware of in that place since Uncle John's been gone. That's a lot of people to be living in that place, in the basement. 7 people have been through there in the last 2.5 years. What is that telling you about the people upstairs? So they're nobody to cast no freaking stones. And if you're gonna look over your fucking balcony, look on your side of into your backyard. Don't look into other people's backyards and their windows, because that's creepy. So because of that, right? If I do a Patreon page, which I'm gonna do, because I know Andre likes doing videos, right? And I really, you know, I just really want him to develop his confidence and his own talent and his own skills and his own ideas, right? And, you know, I mean, it's easy to put it up on YouTube and let the trolls come in and start thumbing them down just because, right? You got nothing else better to do in their damn day, right? But if I put it on a Patreon page and they have to pay for it, you know, I think it would be much more easier to track them. Right? That's why I do it, people. Is to start tracking these nutballs. Alright? That have no creativity in their own life. Seriously. So that's what I'm thinking. Right? So that we can move along with this, you know. And outside of that, you know, I didn't go out in the yard today other than to pick some herbs. So now I'm going to go to the corner store with Andre and I'm going to buy a pound of butter. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut that butter into cubes and wash and cut my herbs, put them together. I'm going to wrap them up into little individual packets. I'm going to probably videotape it. And I'm going to toss them in the freezer. That's what I'm going to do. because I've got enough dehydrated herbs. I don't want anything dehydrated. I want something fresh. So I'm going to try it this way. I've seen a couple of videos like that, right? So it looks interesting. Can't say I've ever done it before because I haven't. So I'm going to try it, right? And while I do it, I'm going to videotape it. Just to be out there in the mix, right? And, you know, obviously I miss Uncle John every day, people. Every day. I feel so lost. I do. I feel so lost without him. You don't live with somebody for 23 years, have them mentor you for 30 plus, almost 35 years. You know, he mentored me for 35 years, people. Well, minus the last 2.5 because he hasn't been around. But even now, he's still mentoring me. He mentors me in spirit. But I so do miss him. You just can't imagine having somebody in your life and then just disappear. Just simply disappear. And so, you know, I don't want to harp on it, but I'm not going to let it go either, right? And this is another reason why I kind of have to separate the Patreon page from the history of the nonprofit, I guess you can say. Because if I set up the Patreon page for Andre, then it becomes more child-oriented, where Mama Lynn can kind of just get back to being Mama Lynn, and all those kids that were at Andre's birthday can sign up with their parents onto the Patreon page. Okay? Why not? And all those videos under that page will be private. So that this troll network, if it wants to infiltrate at some point, will be monitored and tracked down. Okay? Because don't forget, people, once I start organizing my paperwork, seriously, which I'm going to start doing, which is kind of depressing, which gives me panic attacks, but besides that point, once I get it all together in terms of what's going on with the YouTube crap, one copy is still going to the police station for investigation. Okay? Serious. Okay, so this is like not quite an organo, but it's a cross. This is an organo. You can see the color is much more. When the flower blooms, it's purple. When the flower blooms, it's white. But their leaves are similar. Right?
Hey, people.
Yeah. This is a thyme. And then over there is some mint. And I have more hanging up that's drying, so hold on. Okay, people, so now it's the 25th of September 2017. This is the way I'm doing it. Now, this one here must be, like, Andre, please. This one here must be a marigum or something, because it's really got a bite to it. Versus just the organo, right? Much milder, and even the thyme. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking some butter. I'm putting it in the bottom of this tray. I'm trying to figure out a way. I've never done this like this before, people. I'm just trying something different. I'm trying to figure out a way where I don't have to use a lot of wrapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it this way. Andre, please. Now I cut these, oops, sorry. I cut these spices last night, and then I pretty much went to sleep. I woke up to some man at 6:30 in the morning screaming, "Help, help, help," out on the road at some point somewhere out there. I looked out my window to try and see where it was coming from, and I only heard the "help me, help" a couple more times. And then I couldn't determine from where it was coming from. These little flower buds are extremely hot. And there was like lots of traffic out at 6:30 in the morning. So I what do you call it? I was really hoping that somebody would stop and help this person, whoever was crying out for help, if it was on the road, so I didn't go running out in the rain to go see who it was. But I feel really bad, people, because all I can think about are those people that got, those 2 men that got murdered in the field over there. So I'm almost tempted to go looking around in the field at some point, but it's pouring rain out there, so I don't know. You can see what I'm doing here, right? Taking some more. Alright, and then what I'm going to do after is I'm going to put them in the freezer so the butter gets real, it gets frozen, right? So it gets frozen. And then, sorry, that's my finger. And then, put it in a bag. And use it for maybe when you make bread or something, or spaghetti sauce. I don't make a lot of spaghetti sauce, but maybe I will. I could see you using that when you make bread, pizza dough or something. Maybe that might work.
Yeah, people.
Mm-hmm. What?
Look, people. Watch this.
Yeah, it was designed to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a minute.
It's a breaking car, people.
Oh, before I go, look what Andre found yesterday. My fingers are greasy, so I have to be careful. Look what he found yesterday, people. We were walking to the walnut tree, and we found some more holly trees.
And I found
and some more oak trees, which we're going to dig up this week.
No. It's a rain. I found it.
Yeah. It just like it was like a magnet to him or something. We're walking down the road, and he had his little bike, and he was riding it, and then he decided to go along this way along the meridian, and he kind of fell, and next thing you know, he picks up this ring, and he says, "Look what I found." It was like the ring was calling him or something. It was weird. And then we got this. We found this for our rock collection just the other day.
What is that?
Well, actually, the neighbors were chucking it out. I don't know why they do that, but anyway, maybe they didn't realize it was in the box. But anyway, we got that for our rock collection. I'm not too sure what that is. I can't remember what it's called, but we'll find out. Hold on. Okay, so I'm only doing one tray because I'm not too sure if I would use this. Right, I used a half a pound of butter. Right, so I put some of that in there, which is I'm thinking more like a marjoram, oregano, and some thyme. Now the rest of this stuff, I'm just going to let it air dry. This one's almost already dry. And I'm just going to throw it into one jar, and that will be it after it's dry. This is fennel.
You're going to put these in the freezer?
I'm going to put those in the freezer, and then after I'm going to try and get them out of the tray and put them in a bag, and then maybe we'll cook with it. Hold on. Okay, people. So, I think it's September 26th, 2017. I think it's the 26th. It's Tuesday anyway. So, I think I'm going to call this one Living Next Door to a Stalker. I already have a little clip that I haven't uploaded yet talking about my neighbor, right? Neighbors. These ones over here with the 3 kids that they send on a bus, and they're gone for 8 hours a day, 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. And that is the epitome of what a parent is supposed to be, right? In terms of an education. You know, just send your little 5-year-old off on a bus and have a good day kind of thing. Along with your 7-year-old and your 9-year-old or whatever they are. Right? As you sit and you spy on your neighbors because you got nothing else better in your day to do than to spy on your neighbors. Personally, I'm starting to think that they're paid informants for MCFD, because this is just too repetitive, people, in terms of, this is the third time MCFD has come to my house since Uncle John's been gone. Since Uncle John's been gone. Pretty sure since Uncle John's been gone. The first time, just to recap, I'll have to dig up the videos for this, because I probably made some sort of commentary on it, right? We were in the front, up by this compost where the grapevine is, and the Norway maple, and Andre was jumping off the compost or something, and then he wanted to go see his little friend, and I was doing something in the ground, you know, planting or digging or something right there, right? and he was arguing with me. Arguing, and he was getting really loud. Because I'm thinking, right? Like, what's provoking these phone calls, right? Because to come to my house based on 2 screws on a rail, come on, people, this is like pretty suspicious if you don't, you know, if you ask me, right? So anyway, I just remember he was arguing and he was getting loud, and he was being very obnoxious, because you have to remember, well, you wouldn't know, people, but we know when Andre came home from foster care, right? He was very, 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 very stubborn, very argumentative. And he's still argumentative, right? You say something to him and it turns into a butt, and then it turns into an argument. Doesn't matter what it is. In their MCFD files, there's a name for it. So the foster care parent gave it a name. I can't remember what the name is, but it's kind of like anti-authoritarian, right? And he came home like that. And not only did he come home like that, but he came home with extreme tantrums. Like, extreme. And instant tantrums. Just all of a sudden. And at the top of his lungs. Right? If he starts with tantrums now, I just look at him and I say, okay, Andre, go ahead, have a tantrum. Nana gives you permission to have a tantrum. And because he's older, he realizes, and he kind of shuts up. He controls himself, and he doesn't take it to that next level where he's screaming on for a good 15, 20 minutes. You know, I'd take him out. We'd be, you know, going somewhere, and he'd get it in his little mind that he'd want to have a tantrum, and next thing you know, he's having a tantrum out in public, right, at the top of his lungs. This is what I dealt with for the first year and a bit. Tantrums are not as bad as they used to be. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even hardly ever have tantrums. Because I call him on him. I say, okay, you want to have a tantrum? Go ahead, Andre, have a tantrum. And he realizes that, you know, it's a tantrum and it's not going to really get him anywhere, so he pretty much stops and controls himself. Where in the beginning of the first year and a half or whatever it was, you know, it was just out of control, right? And I'd have to let him cry himself out, basically. Just stand there and have your tantrum. So anyway, we were out in the yard, and, you know, he was arguing about going to his little friends, and he said he was going to go do it by himself, and, you know, he was really, really, really being testy. So I said, no, that's it. We're going inside. Time out. So I grabbed him by his arm, and I walked him into the house, and of course he's screaming at the top of his lungs, because in those days he was having tantrums. Right, came inside, you know, I have to be firm, my pop is bigger than your pop, you know, put him down the hall, made sure he stayed down the hall, because he doesn't like going in his room, never closed the door, right, but he's hollering at the top of his lungs, and, you know, 15 minutes later or whatever, we're back outside. And then the cops showed up. That was the first time the social workers came. Because somebody heard Andre having a tantrum and called the cops. And then the cops called, I guess, the social workers. Because he's, you know, he's my grandson. He's not my child. Right? And, you know, I'm already flagged, people. Just think about it. He's not covered for dental care, even though he's a poor child. He's not covered for prescription medication, even though he's a poor child, right? He's only covered for emergency visits and doctor visits, because whatever those visits are goes straight to his file, which means that he's flagged. We're flagged. As these people next door, the epitome of what is right in the French community, even though they're scaring out all their tenants in the basement, 7 tenants later, people are still moving in and out like the revolving door from the basement because they can't stand what goes on upstairs, right, in terms of noise and those kids bouncing around. And the dad, getting people evicted. Like I said, the last guy that just moved out, he got evicted, right? The guy before him couldn't stand it and moved out. The women that move in end up moving out. So, this guy over here, he's nobody to talk. And so anyway, that was the first time. So, of course, social workers came and, what's the story? What's the story? Told him the story, and then, of course, they want to talk to him. But the thing is, when they talk to him, because they talk to him in private, this is their method to come into my house and to talk to him in private. That's their protocol, right? That they're required to do that under their mandate. When they leave, what happens is, because he's already been damaged in terms of being ripped from his family and put in a situation where he developed extreme tantrums, an argumentative behavior, right? In terms of, no, I don't want to. Crossing his hands. You have to remember, first 6 months they had him, he wouldn't talk, he wouldn't eat, he wouldn't nothing. Right? Apparently the foster care parent had an extremely hard time with him, as if it was his fault. It wasn't his fault, people. It was their fault. It was their fault from taking him from a family that raised him for 28 months and nurtured him, right? Between myself and his aunties and his mother. And then all of a sudden he was ripped away from that and put into a foreign environment with by himself, locked in a room, where he developed extreme tantrums and fear. And he... No. Okay. So when they come and talk to him, obviously when they leave, he acts out for a while, right? He's more aggressive. He's more argumentative. He doesn't listen as well. And it takes a few days or so for that to dissipate, to disappear. Because he's feeling insecure. Because, innately he remembers, right? And he's not stupid. Children are not stupid, okay? Okay, everything calms down, whatever, get back to just trying to establish boundaries and, my pop is bigger than your pop, no means no. Like, we're still establishing what no means, people. Because he likes to argue. He came home arguing. Now, I'm grandma, right? All stressed out from what's happened to my daughter and blah, blah, and, I'm working in the yard and just blah, blah. So now I get a grandson that's, not the way he was when he was with me before they took him. And I'm having to adapt and, try and get him back on the right track and get him grounded and, having him feel secure and that kind of thing, right? Okay. And then, I don't remember the exact dates. I just remember the second time, when was the second time? What was it? Oh yes, it was the knee. It was the knee. And this is how I know it's these neighbors next door, people. Okay? First it was in the yard, in the front, right? Over him wanting to go by himself, down the road, across the street, to go see his little friend, and Nana saying, no, not right now. Maybe we'll go later, and he's determined to go now, and he's getting all loud, and, he's arguing, and he's badgering, and he won't quit, and, 20 minutes later, he's still arguing, and he's still badgering, and I'm like, that's enough, we're going inside, time out, So I grab his little arm and I walk him in the house. And by that time, because he was in those days in his tantrum stages, he was screaming at the top of his lungs. And those people next door took it as a cue to call the police. So by the time we got back outside, the police showed up, asking me questions. Whoa, what's going on? We got a phone call that, there was an emergency. I said, emergency? But that was just the excuse to call in the social workers, that's all. Because they're building a file. They're building a file, people. I'm starting to think that they're building a file. You know, you hear those files. Oh, social services were there at that house 8 times and look what happened. Okay, well, we're on to number 3 now. Okay? So, okay, the second time, I'm in the back. You know, Shimei's downstairs, Marcane's downstairs. Shimei had her friend over with her boyfriend, so there was Shelby and somebody else, and then Shelby had her children there. You know, a little girl that was playing the drums there in one of my videos with her little brother, right? In the meantime, Andre had his wart burned off at the doctor's office with that freezing agent, and he kept touching it. Shimei noticed that he kept touching it. In the meantime, I'm in the back working, right? I have video of it, people. I was working, doing something. You know, Andre's playing with the kids and whatever, but he kept touching his knee. And Shimei said, no, come here, we're going to put something on it so it doesn't get infected. And unfortunately, she put on rubbing alcohol without thinking, right? And that made him scream at the top of his lungs, which brought me to her window, looking in, saying, what the heck is going on? She starts telling me what's going on. But in the meantime, these people next door are standing out there with their cell phone videotaping me. Just like he's hanging over the balcony looking into my backyard, right? Because he's got nothing else better to do than looking on his side of the balcony into his backyard. Why doesn't he look into his own damn backyard before he's looking into my backyard? Why does he have to look into my backyard and then get bored with that and then start trying to look into the bedroom windows? Because my daughter caught him doing that a couple times and she had to close the curtains. Okay, this is what we're dealing with here, people. So anyway, right, next thing you know it, okay, whatever, 11 o'clock at night, knock, knock, knock at the door, right, because everything was fine. I said, Shimei, you know what's going on? No, you don't do that. Andre, calm down. It's just a disinfectant. It will go away. Everything will be fine. Just breathe, right? Shimei, don't do that no more. Okay, fine. I go back and I continue working. Nothing I could have done, people, other than what I did, right? Bring him in, whatever, give him something to eat, whatever, let him have a bath, knock, knock, knock at the door. It's like going on 10:30, 11 o'clock at night or whatever it was. And there's the police. I said, okay, what's up? Oh, well, we got, a report that blah, 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 blah. This is a child safety check. I said, child safety check? Well, Andre's in the bathtub right now. Oh, well, I need to see him. I'm like, okay. So I let the cop come in, right? And he's there now standing at the bathroom door, putting a flashlight on Andre's face as Andre's in the bathtub. Okay? And of course, Andre's feeling on the spot. That's not normal, people. Nothing normal about that. Turned out, because the cop told me, somebody took a video and drove to the cop station with the video of this incident. There's only one person that could have possibly have done that, and that was the people next door. Okay? In order to get a clear view. Right? It wasn't these people in the back over here. I can almost guarantee you of that. Right? Then, after that, guess what happened? MCFD showed up. And then I had to explain the story to them, what happened. And of course, once they're in your house, whatever they do, okay? And then, they wander off and they have that private conversation with the child because that's the mandate. But do they realize that when they do that, what they're doing is they're disrupting the emotional development of the child? Because by doing that, what they're doing is they're continuing to feed into that insecurity that initially developed when he was wrongfully apprehended from the home. Andre was never an insecure child until he was taken from this house and put into foster care. He was in foster care for 15 months. For the first half of the year, he wouldn't eat and he didn't talk. And then he developed behavioral problems in terms of severe tantrums and being argumentative with anything and everything. And of course, he felt insecure. So they're just feeding into his insecurity. It's like they want somebody, I don't know who they are, but it's like somebody wants him to always feel a sense of insecurity, because each and every time this happens, he acts out after they're gone because he knows that he's not safe, because it's just a matter of time before somebody else is going to show up at the door and threaten him in terms of, are you okay? Because if you're not, we'll take you away. Maybe they're not saying it outright, but again, children are intuitive. They're not stupid. They know. And because he's already been there, it's just like keeping an open wound that's closing opened again. Right? So that was the second time they called. Right? And then there was, of course, a little bit of backlash from that, because he was, he acts out, right? Because, he's feeling insecure. And I'm like, just calm down, right? You're a good boy, right? Everything's fine. Nobody's going to take you away. Just relax. Just listen to Nana. Just behave, right? And then, if he starts with a blah, whatever, I'm like, oh, Andre, you need to control yourself, because if you don't control yourself, somebody is going to call, and before you know it, those people are going to show up. I don't say that too often. I've said it once or twice, but for the most part, I just try to, move on, right? Because I'm not trying to dwell on, negative memories that made him come home like this. Or having severe tantrums, or wants to argue about each and everything that you could possibly argue on about, which is everything. Okay? Try being a grandmother, helping a child through that, where the child ends up developing confidence and can be independent and a critical thinker and, self-disciplined in terms of making it in life. Okay? And then this last time, this most recent time, I know it came from them. I just know it, people. Because everything points to them. The video to the cop shop, bringing him in from outside because he was arguing and being stubborn and threatening to run off down the road because he wanted to go see his little friend, and I brought him in and he had that huge tantrum, and then I went back outside, and like I said, I wasn't even outside for 10 minutes before the cops showed up after he had his tantrum on the inside. Right? Because they sit out there and they spy and they listen because they've got nothing else to do. Or they're paid informants. I'm starting to think that maybe they get paid for this. I do. I'm really starting to think this. Because these people that work in this type of industry know that if they keep interrupting his emotional well-being in terms of they just pop up out of nowhere, start asking random questions under the guise of, trying to help and protect him from his big, bad, mean Nana, right? Just so they can keep that file open, right? And derail the nonprofit, because it's obvious that I don't get a lot of support with it, right? Just like the Duncan clan, why would they want that nonprofit to be successful? Uncle John had something to do with that nonprofit. If the nonprofit was successful, it would show that Uncle John actually had a life. that he actually had things in his life that were important to him, right? They don't want things that were important to him to be remembered, because then it wouldn't justify what they did to him through Fraser Health and their facilitating employees to make it so that Uncle John lost all his memory and forgot everything for the convenience of them, as they took his assets away from him, right? So this last time, was over a rail, which, again, Andre jumped off the rail, as little boys do. I turned around, I caught it. Andre, don't do that. That rail's not safe. Nana has to fix it. Rick was supposed to fix it, but Rick went somewhere else. Whatever. We've got the other neighbor coming to do the porch. So at the same time, we'll get that rail fixed. So what are these people doing? They got their cameras out there, and if they're not the cameras, it's their cell phones. And if it's not their cell phones, they're sitting there listening on their chair. And that was the excuse. That was the excuse, people. To call MCFD, blah, 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 for them to come back to the house, make inquiries. The 2 screws on the rail was the excuse to come to the house. But after it was all said and done, it kind of boiling down to the homeschooling, right, in terms of, what other people perceive as a traditional education, right? It's acceptable to have your kids on a bus, gone for 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? That's quality parenting, as those parents stalk their neighbors, whether they're getting paid to do it or not. And I'm starting to think that they get paid for this, people. I am. Because this is 3 times in 2 years and a bit. I'll have to go back into my papers and get the exact dates. Okay? Because somebody is trying to build a file. I didn't get my money for Andre, because that file, the contract file, went to a different social worker. But I'm being told that this program that I'm under has nothing to do with social workers. It's strictly financial. But yet, he's not covered for dental. He's not covered for prescription. Right? They know that a lot of these kids that they transfer guardianship over, their grandparents are poor. Not everybody is rich in BC. So the government is making the money, not the caregivers. Okay. We don't get GST. We don't get family allowance. We don't get help with the prescriptions. We don't get help with the dental. Now let me tell you something. If for by the grace of God, we win this lawsuit, and I'm no longer on social assistance, that money under that contract, I wouldn't need it anymore now, would I? But since rich people can keep that money without paying taxes on it, that money that I would get in that case, I think I would just bank it for Andre. Because it's just... So I'm sitting here wondering how I'm going to pay my rent now, people. That's what I'm trying to say. Because everything's backlogged. Because it came up with the 2-year contract. Go.
I'm going back and forth.
Hold on a minute. He was just gathering up all his birthday presents. That's what he was doing. Just being a looky-loo, right? So anyway, as I was saying, because of all this kerfuffle, which I think was staged, to be honest with you people, because it's like, it came right at the end of, the 2-year contract where they have to renew it, right? And they used 2 screws and a rail as an excuse to come by to talk to him regarding, how he's being treated in terms of, do you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Does your grandma scream at you or get mad at you? I wouldn't say scream, but get mad at you if you don't go to bed. You know, like, what kind of questions is that, people? I can tell you what kind of questions, because he told me what kind of questions they were asking, right? Because I asked him, what did they ask you, Andre? I didn't pressure him. He just said a couple little things, right? You know, like, what does that have to do with railings and screws, people? It's because those people next door are paid informants. And if they're not paid informants, then they seem to think that their shit doesn't stink, right? And they're just troublemakers. Just like they got the people downstairs to move out. If they're not getting evicted by the landlord, they're driving them out because they can't stand the noise that goes on with those uncontrolled kids when they get home from being in school for 8.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, bouncing around on the floor. God knows what else that they do that drives those tenants out from the basement. But I'm starting to think they're paid. I do. The guy sits around, does nothing all day. It's a little extra income for him. Right? And it's like clockwork. It's starting to be like clockwork. Right? 3 times in the last 2 years or whatever. Like, come on. Right? So now I'm like panicking. Again, what's new, right? Wondering how long it's going to take to get this contract rewritten up for another 2 years, because they do it every 2 years, right? So that I can meet my rent, all of it, by the 11th of October, right? Because I give my landlady $650 on the 11th or so from when I get Andre's money. That's how I maintain on this house. And I have received nothing yet because that file was on somebody else's desk that shouldn't have had it. As I've got people calling social services MCFD on me, right? Because Andre's outside learning work skills and, you know, just being a kid and developing confidence and critical thinking skills and, you know, that kind of thing, right? Just learning to feel safe and grounded and have a sense of belonging, right? In terms of, this is his home, this is his nana, this is his yard, you know, this is his opportunity to be Andre, to do Andre. And those people next door don't like it for whatever reason, right? You know, they've got their kids on this tight little schedule. Oh, it's lunchtime. Oh, it's dinner time. So they go in, they come out, they're, you know, sucking on their ice cream cones or whatever after their lunch, and you'd think they'd come and give one to Andre? Hell no, they just all stand there, 3 of them, all sucking on their ice cream cones in front of Andre. But does that mean that Andre doesn't eat? Well, obviously he eats throughout the day, people. Right? People giving him food. Uncle Marcaine cooking for him 5 days a week, whatever it is. If I'm not cooking, he's in and out, grabbing bananas, eating fruit, right? Drinking milk, eating cheese, you know, having sandwiches, eating porridge. And then Nana's cooking, whatever. Sometimes I cook the night before. We eat it cold. The next day, you know, meats and stuff like that, right? But they don't see it like that. They see it like, well, they're not like us. Well, yeah, I don't sit in my main floor of my house with my flat grass and send my grandson off every day for 8.5 hours a day so I don't have to be a parent. And I can just sit around and spy on my neighbors and get paid for it. Right? So I would suspect, people, that this is going to happen again. I think this is the point of this video. I've had neighbors like this before when I lived at Gateway Place with that Marnie and her mob crew that she recruited, right? Because, you know, negativity draws negativity. So, because I'm a positive person, I try and do positive things. If I wasn't a positive person, I wouldn't have put in a pond. I wouldn't have built a greenhouse. I wouldn't have made garden beds. I wouldn't have made a seedling area. I wouldn't have done anything. I would have just sat on my ass, got myself a spyware freaking camera, and watched my computer all day to find something to pick on somebody else because I've got nothing else better to do in my day, and then call the cops. Okay, that's what we're dealing with next door. Already had a neighbor like that at Gateway Place. When she used to call the cops on me for out being in the courtyard doing stuff with the kids. She was the one that threw hot water at my daughter and, stick her tongue out at my daughter and, just all kinds of crazy shit this woman did. You go there today, she's probably still living there with her camera, only now she's picking on somebody else. As a matter of fact, she is picking on somebody else because the person that lived below me that was kind of like her, after I moved out, she put her sights on him and started picking on him and tried to get him evicted. And he had lived there for like 15, 20 years before she had even moved out. She moved in, right? And then after I moved out, because I got fed up with her bullshit, she set her sights on him and tried to get him evicted out, even though he had been living there 15 years before she showed up. It's just like a Joan Duncan. They're very unhappy people, and they're not happy unless they're trying to destroy somebody else's life. And that's what kind of neighbors I have. And why this landlord puts up with these people, I don't know, because it's pretty clear sign that if everybody in the basement suites are moving out on the regular, there's obviously something going on the upstairs, right? For those people to be either moving out or being forced out because the guy upstairs has no life, as he's hanging over my side of the balcony, spying into my bedrooms when he's not taking videos of my yard and then running off to the cop station with his little cell phone saying, "Look!" Okay? How do you live with that? I don't know, people. Just gonna have to cope with it. Just document it. That's what I'm doing. I'm just documenting it. I'm just documenting it right now, people. So if and when it should ever go to fucking court, because the shit gets out of control, right? I can show the pattern of my privacy being invaded. I can show the pattern of the gang stalking that continues on around Uncle John, right? Whether this is related to Uncle John or not, I don't know. The guy and his wife just might be cuckoo, right? Thinking that, like I said, somehow that they're such great parents. On a last note, people, I raised 5 kids, right? I never had issues with social services. Never. Andre comes home, and within 2 years and a bit, they're in and out of my house like a revolving door. As if somehow there's something severely wrong with me. Now, why is that? Why? How can you go 30 years raising kids and still have them at home? My son works full-time. He's a tree cutter. That's a dangerous job, people. He climbs 200 feet high. And he gets in with the law of gravity. He puts his life at risk for his job. My youngest daughter, you can see how she is with kids just with the birthday party that she put on for Andre. That's what she does, people. She works with children. Right? If she's not being a nanny 5 days a week, she's working in a play, those big jungle gym things. And those, I don't know what they're called. That's what she does. She's been doing it for a long time. Right? My other daughter could have been a nurse, should have been a nurse, but we know what happened with that. That was sabotaged through Fraser Health Authority and CIBC Bank, because they were more interested in banking the money for themselves one way or another, whether it's Uncle John paying for that pay-as-you-go service or the bank banking their RRSPs, registered tax saving plans, and God knows what else they banked, than they are thinking about the Canadian-born youth that are coming up in the ranks, that where, they have to go into $100,000 in debt just to be able to get a quality education so they can go compete with a whole bunch of immigrant workers that come in and work for less, as they undermine the patients that they're serving because they're more interested in seizing the assets through illegal detainments, like they did with Uncle John. And they don't care who they hurt, including my daughter. So therefore, my daughter never became a nurse. That doesn't mean that she won't become a nurse or something like that one day. It just means that psychologically, she's been damaged to the point where she can't focus on her education. Whose fault is that? Hers? Hell no. Not hers. It's the unions that are trying to prop up those superannuation life insurance policies, those dental benefits, their prescription benefits, their disability plans, their pension plans, all their perks that they get within the union. But at the end of the day, in 20 years from now, after the baby boomers are gone, and there are no more baby boomers to exploit, who's going to be the next target group within that union sector? Because it's just really the union sector that has that security. I'm telling you, people, if Uncle John didn't have what he had in terms of his pension plans, they would have left him alone, just like they leave my daughter alone. So, we're establishing a pattern here. Okay? Just like they're establishing a pattern with me, I'm establishing a pattern with them. And I pretty much know where it's coming from. Whether the guy is a paid informant or whether he's just a shit disturber. Could be a little bit of both. Okay, so we're just going to finish it with that. There's that butter with those herbs, you can see. So I'm just taking them out of the tray and putting them in there and put that back in the freezer. I don't know. I don't know how often I'd use this, but we'll try it. Hold on. See?